The night she told me, I was on my knees, literally, trying to unclog the bathroom drain because her hair had built a small nest in it again. She stood in the doorway, arms folded, wearing her do not disturb bathrobe. Steam still clung to her skin from the shower I ran for her, like I always did. I was elbow deep in gray water and soap sludge when she said it. I'm not doing intimacy anymore. That part of us is over. She didn't ask. She declared it. Like she was canceling a subscription. Like she was canceling me. I remember the drain gurgling as I froze. My hands were still inside the pipe. No fight. No drama. Just facts delivered like weather updates. She said she didn't want to talk about it and walked away, leaving her damp footprints across the hardwood I had just polished that morning. With lemon oil. For her. At first, I thought it was temporary. Maybe she was stressed. Hormones. Grief. Work. I gave her space. I waited. I Googled things like how to emotionally reconnect with your wife and marriage resets that actually work. I even downloaded a mindfulness app. But it wasn't temporary. She meant it. Weeks passed. She stopped touching me, not even a hand on the shoulder. She stopped making eye contact when we spoke. She even stopped letting her knee brush against mine under the dinner table. We became roommates. Cold ones. Here's the twist. She still expected everything else from me. The back rubs. The vet runs. The grocery lists. The emotional labor. The birthday planning for her mother who's never liked me. She wanted me to be her provider, her helper, her safe space. But not her partner. I felt like a vending machine. Input time, energy, support, receive nothing. Until I stopped giving. One day, she asked me to fix the Wi-Fi. I said, call the provider. She blinked at me like I'd spoken another language. When she asked if I could drive her to a hair appointment, I said, take an Uber. When she left a pile of her orders by the door, expecting me to box them up and ship them, I walked past them like they weren't even there. And that's when things got interesting. She didn't yell. She didn't even argue. But I saw something shift in her face. Like the power she thought she had over me had flickered. But I wasn't trying to punish her. I just realized something. I had trained myself to love someone who only saw my usefulness, not my soul. And I would have kept unraveling in silence if not for what happened that Friday night. She came home late, buzzed, maybe drunk, maybe just reckless. I smelled cologne on her scarf, not mine. Not any I knew. Then I heard her whispering in the kitchen. Not on a call. She was talking to someone. Low, intimate. Like the voice you use when your heart's somewhere it shouldn't be. I waited. She didn't know I was still awake. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Instead, I made a list. A list of everything I did to keep this broken thing running. Everything I gave up. Everything she didn't notice. And everything I was about to take back. She wanted a life without intimacy. She was about to learn what that really meant. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just laid there, listening to the sound of her putting away whatever leftovers she had brought home from her night out. I heard the crinkle of takeout bags, the fridge door opening, a drawer sliding shut, the distinct click of her wine glass being placed on the counter, that stupid glass with the gold cursive letters that said, Rose all day. I gave it to her 2 years ago, a joke gift. She loved it. Or at least she pretended to. I stared at the ceiling, not even blinking, just trying to decode what I heard earlier. That soft voice in the kitchen. I knew her tones like the back of my hand. That wasn't the way she spoke to friends. It wasn't small talk. It was intentional. It had a rhythm, a flirt. You don't whisper like that unless your lips are already halfway to betraying someone. And still, I did nothing. Said nothing. I just started acting like her ghost. The next morning, she tried to be cheerful. She actually made pancakes. It was absurd. Lenora hadn't made breakfast in 6 years. I watched her flip the second one, humming off-key to a song she didn't know I hated, and she looked over her shoulder like we were fine. Like she didn't carve my heart in half the night before and toss it in the sink. Want coffee? She asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. No, I replied. Already had some. I hadn't. But I wasn't about to pretend anymore. Her eyes twitched, just a little. She could feel it. I wasn't orbiting her anymore. I started pulling away in ways that only someone really paying attention would notice. No more good morning texts. No more folding her laundry. No more remembering her deadlines and dentist appointments and her mother's stupid garden club events. I stopped asking how her day was. I didn't sit down to eat with her anymore. I ate standing up. Like a roommate. Like a stranger. She tried to test the waters one evening by plopping down next to me while I was on the couch watching some trash true crime show. She made some dumb comment about the detective's haircut, then laid her head on my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't lean in, didn't put my arm around her. I kept watching, blank as a brick wall. Her breathing changed after a minute. Shallow. Nervous. She got up and said she was going to bed early. This was a game she didn't realize she started, and she sure as hell didn't know how to play it when the rules weren't hers. But none of that even comes close to what happened the following week. I had the day off. She thought I was out of the house, but I'd left my wallet behind, so I came back mid-morning. Quietly, I parked up the street and walked the back way. I didn't mean to be sneaky, but what I saw when I looked through the kitchen window made my stomach turn. Lenora was sitting at the table, in my chair, on a video call. She was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was down, her lips were pink. She had put on mascara in the morning, which she never did for me. And she was laughing. That soft laugh. That laugh I hadn't heard in so long. I forgot it used to be mine. Then I heard it. Stop. She whispered into her phone, playful. You're so bad. If Gil ever saw this, he'd lose his mind. That name. Mine. In that voice. It didn't sound like she respected me. It sounded like a joke. Like I was the punchline. I didn't go inside. I didn't interrupt. I just turned and left. I drove around aimlessly for hours. I stopped at a gas station and just sat in the parking lot with the engine off, watching people come and go, wondering how many of them were living through quiet disasters like mine. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Pale, small, pathetic. She had stripped me of everything and still wanted me to carry her life on my back. But she made one mistake. She thought I'd keep doing it. I didn't tell her I saw the call. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started collecting receipts. I started watching patterns. I took note of when she left the house, who she texted, and what she deleted. She had declared the death of our intimacy like it was a power move. But I was going to bury the whole illusion of our marriage and make sure she never saw it coming. She kept pretending everything was fine. That was probably the part that twisted the knife the deepest. The small talk in the morning. The soft hums as she folded laundry. The way she'd call me babe in front of her friends, like she hadn't turned off our intimacy like a faucet and then tossed the wrench. Like I wasn't the one waking up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering how a marriage dies so quietly. I didn't sleep in our bed anymore. I said it was because of my back, which wasn't a complete lie, but mostly, I just couldn't stand the smell of her vanilla lotion or the sight of her curled away from me like I was radioactive. I slept on the couch, or sometimes just in the car, with the seat reclined, like a damn teenager who got kicked out of his girlfriend's dorm room. But it was the silence that gave her away. Lenora was too careful, too calculated. She stopped using her laptop at home and started using her phone more. She locked it when she left the room. She started using headphones for FaceTime. She even changed her passcode, which she hadn't done in years. I might have missed it, if not for one tiny, stupid mistake. Our phone plan. It's under my name. Always has been. She forgot that. I logged in one night, just to confirm what my gut had been screaming. There it was, thousands of messages. Same number. Over and over. Random hours. Even during work meetings. Especially during work meetings. Middle of the night. Lunchtime. Once, literally during our anniversary dinner, she had sent a photo to him while I was in the restroom. I checked the timestamp. I remember the waiter bringing out the dessert with the candle while I sat there, smiling like an idiot, and she was already gone, mentally, emotionally, and probably physically too. The number was registered to someone named Marcus Blaine. I didn't recognize the name, but I remembered the last name. It was on a business card I pulled out of our junk drawer months ago. Some marketing guy. I thought it was work-related. I didn't ask. Why would I? I cross-referenced the call times with her location history from her cloud backup. The math wasn't hard. She was seeing him during her late office hours, her team-building retreats, her solo mental health days. I remember closing the browser and just sitting in the dark, my coffee still steaming next to me. I didn't cry. That would have made it too real. I just felt erased. And then I started planning. Not revenge, not yet. Something colder, quieter. I started withdrawing financially. Carefully. She hadn't noticed that the shared checking account had stopped getting transfers from my personal business account. I told her I was working on a side project that needed capital. She didn't even blink. She was too busy choosing outfits for weekends with her sister and adjusting her posture in the mirror to look more natural. For who? I stopped putting gas in her car. I started tracking her packages. I started scanning every credit card charge. I even followed her once, just to be sure. I'm not proud of that part, but I had to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know. She didn't see me. I stayed far behind. She met him at a park. Not some dim hotel. A park. In broad daylight. Like they had nothing to hide. He looked like every cliché. Tall. Confident. Hair that said midlife crisis, but sunglasses that said, I do CrossFit. He touched the small of her back when she laughed. She laughed. That laugh again. Like the one she buried a year ago and brought back just for him. They didn't kiss. Not there. But they didn't need to. I could see it in the way she leaned toward him like gravity was pulling her. I was watching the version of my wife I hadn't seen in years, alive, bright-eyed, available. Just not to me. I didn't confront her that night. I went home, reheated soup, and sat in silence. When she came through the door hours later, she smelled like wind and red wine. She kissed the top of my head like I was her father, not her husband, and went straight to shower, probably washing off the last pieces of him. Something inside me shut off completely that night. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was done. But I wasn't leaving. Not yet. Because I was going to make her ask me to go. I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose something she didn't realize she needed, not until it was gone. I didn't expect her to remember my birthday. I had already lowered the bar beneath the dirt months ago. But part of me, the part that hadn't been fully crushed under the weight of her silence, her distance, her lies, still held on to a tiny hope. Not for a gift. Not for a dinner. Just a sentence. Just the words. A small acknowledgement that I still existed in her world. That I mattered enough for her to mark the date in her mind, even if just in passing. The day came and went. She didn't say a word. What made it worse was that she had the nerve to leave a card on the counter. Not for me, but for her boss. Happy retirement, Ron. In her curling script. She even added a little doodle of balloons next to her signature. That card sat there in the same spot where, 10 years ago, she once left a note that said, Happy birthday, my best friend. My home. My always. I remember that note better than anything else she's ever written. I still have it. Folded. Tucked inside the back of a drawer. Her handwriting looks younger in it. More real. More hers. But now, she barely looks me in the eye. That night, I didn't bring it up. I didn't drop hints. I just cooked myself dinner, an old recipe she used to love, and I ate it alone at the kitchen island while she paced around on the phone in the other room. Probably with Marcus. Or maybe her sister. I honestly didn't care anymore. Her voice had become white noise. Static. The storm hit around 2 a.m. Not metaphorically. A real storm. Thunder, rain, tree branches thrashing the side of the house. Our power flickered twice, and then cut out completely. I sat in the dark, staring at the blinking light on the router, listening to the wind howl like it was trying to warn me. She stumbled into the room wrapped in a blanket, clearly startled. Did the power go out? I didn't look at her. Yeah, it happens during storms. She waited for me to get up. To do what I always did. Check the fuse box, grab flashlights, run the backup generator we barely used. But I stayed on the couch. You're not going to fix it? She asked, her voice half confused, half irritated. I shrugged. I figured since we're not really a thing anymore, you probably don't need me for that. She didn't reply, just stood there for a second too long, then turned and walked away. The next morning, she was quiet. She kept glancing at the kitchen lights like she didn't trust them, like the house itself might betray her next. And I realized something. She had grown so used to me absorbing every inconvenience that she no longer remembered how to solve things herself. She was slipping. She had leaned so hard on my presence, even while pretending I didn't exist, that the second I stepped out of that role, even slightly, her world wobbled. I kept it up. I let her mail pile up. I stopped mowing the lawn. I ignored the leaky faucet. I left her calls from the insurance company unanswered. And slowly, her carefully curated little life started to glitch. The illusion cracked. She was still going out, still putting on lipstick and heels and walking out the door with a fake smile and a lie about a work dinner, but she was unraveling. I could see it in her hands, the way she fidgeted with her phone more than usual, the way she sighed into her coffee like it betrayed her. But the moment that really shifted the gravity? The car battery. She left the lights on overnight, probably distracted, probably texting Marcus. The next morning, she ran out of the house in a rush, clearly late for something, dressed too nicely for anything that wasn't a date. I watched from the window as she yanked the driver's door open, tried to start the car, and nothing. She tried again. Nothing. Then the screaming started. She slammed the door, kicked the tire, called someone. I assume it was me. My phone rang once. I watched it buzz on the table. Then twice. Then 3 times. She didn't leave a voicemail. Eventually, I saw her pacing. She looked toward the house, probably expecting me to come out with jumper cables like I always did. But I didn't move. And after 20 minutes, she gave up and called an Uber. She didn't come home that night. When she did return, the next morning, wearing yesterday's makeup and carrying her heels in one hand, she didn't look at me. Just went upstairs, slowly, quietly. And I sat there, sipping the same cold coffee I had reheated 3 times, wondering if maybe this was the moment she realized something terrifying. I wasn't going to fix it this time. Not the faucet. Not the car. Not us. And something told me she knew it was only the beginning. There's a strange kind of pleasure in watching someone who took you for granted finally realize you were the one holding everything together. I don't mean the smug, movie villain kind of pleasure. I mean something quieter, darker, like watching a painting slowly flake off the wall until you finally understand it was never finished in the first place. For the first time in years, I started keeping a journal again. Not because I wanted to document my pain or leave a record behind. I just needed a place to unload the rot before it devoured me from the inside. And it helped. I wrote about the way Lenora looked when she thought no one was watching. How her shoulders sagged slightly when she walked past the mirror. How her hands lingered just a second too long on the doorknob every time she left. I noticed everything now. I had become hyper-aware of her presence. Not because I loved her anymore, but because I had finally stopped being blind to what she actually was. I wasn't trying to punish her. Not exactly. I wasn't taking anything away that she hadn't already given up. She removed herself from our marriage. I was just honoring that request. But people like Lenora, they don't realize how much they rely on you until you stop being there. I had always been in the background, like a well-oiled machine. Reliable. Silent. Invisible. Until now. A week after the car battery incident, things started slipping fast. Her Etsy shop, which I had silently kept afloat for years, was falling apart. Orders were delayed. Shipping labels weren't printing. Messages from customers were piling up. She used to hand me her laptop with a sweet, "Can you just take care of this real quick?" And I always did. But now she was drowning in her own inbox. I watched her at the dining table late at night, typing furiously with her AirPods in, clicking between tabs like it was all on fire. She didn't ask me for help. Not yet. But I could feel it. The desperation humming off her like static. Then came the HOA notice. The lawn hadn't been cut in weeks. The flower beds were overgrown. Our mailbox looked like it belonged to an abandoned house. I used to handle all of that. Quietly. Efficiently. She never even saw the notices before because I intercepted them, paid the fines, made it all go away. Now she was the one standing on the porch, staring at the paper in her hand like it was written in a foreign language. The cracks were forming, and she didn't know how to stop the spreading. But the most telling moment came one Thursday evening. She came home earlier than usual, hair wet, no makeup, wearing the same hoodie she used to steal from me during our first winter together. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway, watching me as I loaded the dishwasher. "Do you want to watch something tonight?" she asked softly. It was such a strange question, innocent on the surface, but it was loaded. She hadn't asked me that in months, maybe years. I looked up, slowly, and studied her face. She looked tired. Not the bad day tired, the soul-deep tired. Like she was carrying something heavy and pretending it wasn't crushing her ribs. I shrugged. "Sure, if you want." She smiled, a small, pitiful thing, and sat on the other side of the couch like we were strangers sharing a bus bench. We watched some meaningless Netflix show, and every 15 minutes or so, she'd glance at me, like she was trying to read my temperature. Like she was looking for a door she used to have the key to, but couldn't remember where she left it. Halfway through the second episode, she said it, softly, barely above a whisper. "I feel like you hate me." I didn't pause the show. I didn't even look at her. "I don't hate you," I replied. "I just stopped pretending this is working." She was silent for so long, I thought maybe she'd fallen asleep. But then I heard her get up and walk out of the room. Not angrily, not even upset, just defeated. That was the first real crack in her armor. She wasn't in control anymore. And she knew it. The next day, I found a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't even dramatic. Just 5 words scribbled on the back of a receipt. Can we talk tonight? Please. I didn't reply, because I already knew what she wanted to talk about, and I wanted her to sit with the weight of it a little longer. She said she didn't want intimacy anymore. Now she was starting to understand that intimacy is more than just sex. It's respect. It's kindness. It's effort. It's showing up. And when you cancel one part, the others don't always survive the fallout. She wanted a partner who would carry her life while she explored other options. She was beginning to realize that her options weren't what she thought they were. And I wasn't the fool she remembered. I didn't respond to the note. I saw it, read it, folded it quietly, and tucked it into my wallet. Not because I planned to save it, but because I wanted her to wonder whether I saw it at all. That little question mark, that tiny splinter of uncertainty, it was the same doubt she had planted in me for months. It was finally her turn to sit with it. That evening, she came home early again. No makeup, hair unwashed, sweatpants, no performance, no charade. Just Lenora, raw and awkward in her own house. She hovered near the hallway like she was waiting to be summoned. But I didn't look up from my laptop. I just kept working. She lingered long enough that I could feel her anxiety crawling up the walls. Eventually, she asked, "Did you see my note?" I clicked something on my screen, pretending to focus. Yeah. A beat passed. She shifted on her feet. "Can we talk?" I closed the laptop. Not slowly, not dramatically. Just enough to show her I was present, but not giving her control. "Sure," I said, leaning back in the chair. "Talk." She wasn't ready for that. She had expected me to lead. She always did. I'd spent years walking her into hard conversations gently, softening the edges before we got to the ugly parts. But I didn't do that now. I let her squirm. She pulled out a chair and sat down across from me, arms crossed, but not defensive, more like someone holding their own broken pieces in place. "I know things have been weird between us," she began, her voice uncertain, eyes flicking away from mine. "I think we just got off track." I said nothing. She continued, trying to hold the silence at bay. "I've been under a lot of pressure. Work's been a mess, the shop's falling behind, and I feel like you've just pulled away from me." I raised an eyebrow. "Have I?" Her throat clicked when she swallowed. "Yes. I mean, maybe I deserve it. I know I've been distant. I said some things I shouldn't have." I stayed still. Let her hang herself with her own rope. She started fidgeting. "When I said I didn't want to be intimate, I wasn't saying I didn't care about you. I just felt disconnected. Like we weren't on the same page anymore. And I didn't know how to fix it." "And Marcus?" I said, like it was a passing thought. That's when she froze. A full second passed before her eyes flinched. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like a dying fish. What do you mean?" I kept my gaze locked on her. "Marcus Blaine, the guy you've been texting, FaceTiming, meeting at that park 3 towns over. That Marcus." She didn't deny it. She just sat there, stunned, glassy-eyed. The silence after that was deafening. I watched the color drain from her face, watched her sit with the reality that the game was over. That I knew. That I'd known. Finally, she whispered, "It wasn't what you think." "It never is," I replied, standing up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even bitter. I was just done pretending. She stood too, panic flaring in her voice now. "Gil, I didn't sleep with him. I swear. It wasn't like that." "I believe you," I said. And I did. I didn't think it had gone there yet. But the emotional affair was undeniable. The looks. The secrecy. The fact that she gave him parts of herself she hadn't shared with me in years. Whether her body crossed the line or not didn't really matter anymore. She started crying then. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just soft. Broken weeping like someone trying to hold back a flood but already ankle-deep in it. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "I just felt invisible." That almost made me laugh. "You felt invisible?" "Lenora, I've been walking around this house like a ghost for months. You killed the connection and then got mad when I stopped pretending it was alive." "I didn't know you were so angry," she said, voice cracking. "I'm not angry," I said, and it was the truth. "I'm just not yours anymore." She dropped into the chair like her legs gave out. She covered her face with her hands, muttering something I couldn't hear. And I didn't ask her to repeat it, because it didn't matter. For once, I didn't feel like the weak one in the room. I didn't feel like the apologizer, the fixer, the emotional punching bag. I felt clear, cold, and in control. She looked up again after a moment, eyes red and raw. What happens now? I thought about that for a long moment. Then I said, that depends on whether you're finally ready to be honest. Not just with me, with yourself. And then I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the silence she thought she wanted. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. That was her pattern, bury conflict under routines, pretend normalcy can sponge off guilt. She made toast, poured coffee, even asked if I wanted any. I didn't answer. I just grabbed my keys and left before she could say another word. I sat in the car for an hour without starting the engine. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I finally could choose. For years, I thought I was trapped in a role. Husband, helper, caretaker. A quiet fixture in her life that would always be there, always available, always fine. But something had shifted. She could cry, confess, apologize, but she couldn't roll things back to how they used to be. She had burned down the old version of me, and now she was trying to warm her hands on the ashes. That night, I came home to candles lit. Actual candles. Dinner on the table. Her in a dress I hadn't seen in years. Chicken marsala, my favorite, or what used to be before I realized I always preferred the leftovers cold the next day. She had put music on in the background. Jazz. The kind I listened to alone, never with her. I stood in the doorway and just looked at her, and for a second, I could see the desperation pushing through her smile. Hey, she said softly. Thought we could eat together tonight. I hung up my jacket but didn't sit down. Why? She blinked. What do you mean, why? I mean, after everything that's happened, why the performance now? Why pretend? I'm not pretending, she said, voice a little too sharp around the edges. I'm trying. No, I said, slowly walking toward the table. You're performing. You're acting like you didn't spend months freezing me out, like you didn't give your energy to someone else, like this. I gestured at the candles, the plates, the wine. Like this erases all of that. She stared down at her plate. I'm trying to fix it. You're trying to skip to the part where I forgive you, I said. But we haven't earned that part yet. She didn't respond. She sat down and started cutting her food, silent. She didn't eat much. A few bites in, she tried again. Do you want to know why I did it? Why I pulled away? No, I said. I want you to know why it doesn't matter anymore. That stopped her. She sat back in her chair like I'd slapped her. I spent the last year making excuses for you. I continued, telling myself you were tired, overwhelmed, that I needed to do more, be more, that if I just waited long enough, you'd come back. And when you didn't, I blamed myself, until I realized I was the only one trying. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. I don't hate you, Lenora. That would be easier. I just see you now, clearly, and I don't think you ever loved me the way I loved you. I think you loved being loved. You loved how easy I made your life. But you never saw me as an equal, just someone to hold the ladder while you climbed. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not really. Her tears were always more about release than regret. You're being cruel, she whispered. No, I said. Cruel was what you did with your silence. Cruel was knowing you were detaching and choosing not to tell me. Cruel was stringing me along while you explored your options, then expecting me to stay here waiting like a damn porch light. She pushed her chair back suddenly and left the room. I didn't follow. Instead, I sat down at the table and took a sip of the wine. She poured mine too sweet, like always. She never actually asked what I liked. She just remembered who I used to be and kept pouring for him. Later that night, she knocked softly on the bedroom door. Mine, not ours. I didn't open it. She didn't knock again. When I left for work the next morning, she was already sitting on the couch, staring at her phone, pale and anxious. There were 2 suitcases by the front door. Hers. She looked up at me as I walked past, eyes bloodshot, mouth trembling. I don't know where I'm going, she said. I didn't ask you to leave, I replied calmly. But I also didn't ask you to stay. She looked away, blinking fast, like the air around her had shifted and she couldn't breathe in it anymore. I didn't think it would get this bad. That's the thing, Lenora, I said as I grabbed my keys. You didn't think at all. I didn't slam the door when I left. I closed it softly. Let her sit in the quiet. Let her think. She was gone when I got home. The 2 suitcases were no longer by the door. The jazz playlist had stopped. No candles, no notes. Just quiet. A soft, almost sacred stillness had settled over the house. The kind you don't notice until you realize how long you've lived without it. I stood in the entryway for a full 5 minutes, just breathing. Not panicked, not angry, just present. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next apology, or excuse, or manipulation disguised as vulnerability. The air felt lighter, like someone had cracked open a window in a room that had long gone stale. She texted later that night, just one message. I'm staying at my sister's. I think you're right. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not being taken care of. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply, not because I was trying to be cruel, but because there was nothing else to say. She finally saw the thing I had been carrying all this time, and she was owning it, even if a little too late. The following weeks were quiet. Strangely beautiful, actually. I started rediscovering little things, not dramatic changes, but honest ones. I began sleeping through the night. I started cooking for myself, not to impress or please someone else, but because I enjoyed it. I pulled the bike out of the garage, the one I hadn't touched since our second year of marriage, and started riding again. I trimmed the hedges, not for the HOA, but because I liked how the clean lines looked under the sun. One Saturday morning, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, shaving. Not out of obligation, not because someone else cared, but because I did. I looked into my own eyes and saw a man I hadn't seen in a long time. A little older, a little bruised, but whole. People say healing is linear. It's not. It came in waves. Some days I'd remember something she said, some old inside joke or smile she used to give me, and it would hurt. But the pain didn't own me anymore. I could feel it, honor it, and let it pass without clinging to it like it was proof of who I used to be. 3 months later, I filed for separation. Not out of spite, not even out of anger, but because I finally understood that letting go wasn't a failure. It was a mercy. For both of us. She responded respectfully. No fighting, no begging, just acceptance. I think part of her knew it was the kindest thing either of us could do. Today, I live in a small apartment with too many books and an old record player that skips slightly on side B. I adopted a dog, a weird-looking mutt with too much energy and one floppy ear. His name's Basil. He doesn't care that I don't have it all figured out. He just wants me present. And I am. Present. That's the real win, I think. Not revenge. Not dramatic closure. Not some last-minute reconciliation wrapped in tears and movie music. Just this, peace. Ownership. The knowledge that I didn't lose myself trying to save something that was already gone. If you're reading this, if you're where I was, here's what I'll tell you. You're not weak for loving someone who didn't love you back the way you deserved. You're not broken for staying too long. And you're not alone when you finally walk away. There's a life waiting outside the walls you thought were home. Mine started the moment I stopped begging to be seen and finally looked in the mirror for myself.